Welcome to round 15, the final round of the World Rapid Championship. We have been following the progress of Magnus Carlsen, and it's almost like in a script. He starts off horribly, flags in the first game, blunders horribly against a 16-year-old in the second game, but then mounts a massive comeback to meet one of his biggest rivals, Hikaru Nakamura, in the last round. And the last round win will get him most likely to a match for the title. If you look at the standings, Dubov is leading by only half a point, but he's playing black against Mamedyarov, tough matchup. Artemiev has black against Karjakin, another tough matchup. So if Magnus wins, he is almost guaranteed, well, he's guaranteed a match for the title. Before we go on to the game, I would like to ask you to, well, let's try to get 100 likes for this video. You know, come on. I made 15 videos now in 3 days. All the games from Magnus. You know, with a full day's job. It's a lot of work, but okay, I do enjoy it as well. Looking at the games of the world champion. But let's smash that like and let's get 100 likes. And if you already haven't, please subscribe. But let's get into the game. So Nakamura has the white pieces, Carlsen the black pieces. And Nakamura opens with pawn to d4 and d5 by Carlsen, as he has been doing most of this tournament, except for the third round when he played the King's Indian. Perhaps he didn't want to play the King's Indian, a double-edged opening against a guy like Nakamura who really knows that opening from the black side. So going for the solid Queen's Gambit declined, knight f3, and now this a6 line which he went for earlier in the tournament. In that game, white took on d5, but in this one, Nakamura plays bishop g5 immediately. Carlsen blocks with bishop to e7, and we have an immediate trade here. e3 and castles. So black has gotten his king to safety relatively quickly. But how to develop the queen side? Carlsen goes for knight to d7, and after rook c1 he takes immediately on c4. This allows white to take in one move with the bishop. Black would prefer to take on c4 when white has moved the bishop, but Carlsen wanted to play for c5, trying to equalize the game as quickly as possible, and from there perhaps try to play for a win. Do not forget that Nakamura is also in a good spot if he manages to win, and that would also guarantee him most likely a spot in a playoff. So b4 now by Nakamura, which prompts Carlsen to go for the queen trade, and knight back to d7. The queen trade was more or less what black had to do, because otherwise maybe white starts to think about queen d6 and rook d1, and he starts to get some attacking chances. After castles, b5 by Carlsen, bishop to b3, and we have a rather dry position. Once again, symmetrical pawns here on the king side, and 2 against 2 on the queen side. So if this game is decided, it's going to be decided by some small margins, but we have already seen that Carlsen might be getting close to his best form, especially with the 14th round win against Aronian. Almost a magical endgame. Rook a7 now, knight d3. So Nakamura is going for this juicy outpost on c5. We don't have black squared bishop, so an outpost on a black square for a knight here is very, very juicy. Bishop to b7. Knight c5 and bishop to d5, offering the trade, and Nakamura decides to give up the knight rather than the bishop. So now finally we have a small imbalance in the position, a bishop against a knight, but which one is better? Nakamura defends the pawn, a3, and now counterattack by Carlsen, a5, and this prompts Nakamura to play e4. But this move also has consequences. Yes, you do kick the knight away from this square, but you are also creating a hole on d4. And we do have knights that can jump around. Jump around! Jump up, get down! And possibly land on d4, which could be something to look out for later in the game. After knight c3, rook to d2. Carlsen took on b4 and double the rooks. So all of a sudden, maybe black is getting a slight edge, you know. Don't forget that these two have had a big rivalry throughout the years. Even though Carlsen has had more or less a ball's grip on Nakamura. For a very long time, Nakamura was simply unable to win, especially a classical game against Carlsen. But, you know, he finally broke through, and he has done better in the faster time control, although Carlsen always has the better score against Nakamura. At one stage, Nakamura even referred to Carlsen as Sauron. Sauron from the Lord of the Rings. And yeah, he sort of fancied himself as sort of the only one that could possibly challenge Carlsen. But let's see, knight a2, and now we have a trade of bishop for a knight. And an endgame that's still symmetrical. White has a nice knight here. But black, this knight is lurking and can possibly attack this pawn, and we do have a very active rook here. And this rook is ready to pounce on this b pawn. Nakamura first makes a luft, but now Carlsen moves in for the b pawn. Rook c1, threatening some discoveries. Perhaps knight takes e6, hits the knight, and in some cases hits the back rank. But Carlsen moves the knight, and now rook to b1. The good question is actually what happens if knight to d3. This does threaten a big check here on the back rank, and Carlsen would simply block with a knight here on c2. So this didn't happen. Rook b1 instead was played by Nakamura. Rook c2, counterattacking. So at the moment, Carlsen is up a pawn. If he had moved the knight, he would have lost this pawn. But attacking the knight on c5 enables Nakamura to take on e6. If you take on e6, we get a rook ending. That should be drawn because, well, you don't want this pawn to be disconnected from your pawn chain. So rook c4 was played by Carlsen. Knight c7, threatening to take on b5. So Carlsen goes for the trade now, and rook to b7. So we have a rook endgame, 4 against 4. And now we will have to test the maxim. Are all rook endgames drawn? Maybe they are, or will Carlsen be able to produce some magic? Let's see. Nakamura brings the king. Carlsen brings the king. So they both centralize the kings. e5 now by Nakamura. Trying to get counterplay. Black has the outside pass pawn and he wants to bring the king to support the pawn. King d5, king d3, and king to c5. What to do now? Well, white actually can't stay passive, so Nakamura goes for rook e4. It's a good rule of thumb not to get too passive in the rook endgames. After b4, king c2. You want your king as a blockader rather than the rook. Rook a7, king b2. Okay, so now the b pawn is blocked and the entry squares are covered. Carlsen has to search elsewhere and he goes for rook d7. Rook e2 covers the second rank. Now g6. And now a timely move by Nakamura, g4, because otherwise black would play h5 and block all his pawns, but now g4 prepares to liquidate a little bit. After rook a7, f5, king d5 and e6, and Carlsen takes. Now Nakamura takes with the rook. If he takes with a pawn, you're immediately losing the pawn. So this is not good. You don't have a good way for the rook to attack this pawn. So a little bit of problem. So Nakamura takes with the rook. G takes F, rook F7. Equal pawns, and white is about to win the B pawn. Now we have only H pawn for white and an H pawn for black. Now is this enough for Carlsen? He has the better king and a further advanced pawn, but is it enough? Rook E3, king D4. Rook E5, preparing to cut off the king. Is Carlsen weaving some endgame magic here? After king B3. Rook E3 check. Is he in time? Is he in time? H4. King F3. King C2. We have an exciting race here. What's going to happen? He gets the pawn. He just needs to get to G2. But no! The king is in time. If the king gets here, it's a draw. If the black king had gotten to G2, black would have won. But now it's a well-known dead draw, and after H2 we have stalemate. Nope, unfortunately Magnus wasn't able to do it. And yeah, the last round went pretty well for Carlsen, had he actually won his game. Dubov drew his game against Mamedyarov. Artemiev drew against Karjakin. So this means that Daniil Dubov manages to hold on to his lead despite playing the last two games with the black pieces. A tremendous result for the young Russian. A second of Magnus Carlsen at the recent World Championship match. He gains a massive 55 rating points. Magnus finishes in 5th place on tiebreaks. We have Nakamura the 2nd seed and Artemiev the 3rd seed joining him, along with Mamedyarov, usual customers. But then a massive result by Alireza Firouzja, who started as the 169th seed. He finishes with 10 points and a massive rating gain of 157.4 points, propelling him to 2,569 in rapid. So yeah, unfortunately no more games. If there were more games, it would have been Magnus playing the match for the title, but since he didn't manage to cook anything up against Nakamura, there was no match for the title, and an unexpected but yeah, well deserved and well earned win by the young Russian Daniil Dubov. Congratulations to him. Thank you for watching, especially if you made it this far and looked at all the games, and you are indeed an excellent subscriber, and thank you very much. Again, remember, we want 100 likes, and don't forget to subscribe. I would really appreciate it, and hope to see you soon. I'm not sure I can produce 21 blitz games in 2 days. That's probably too much, so probably I will select some nice games from the World Blitz Championship, but this concludes my coverage of the World Rapid Championship 2018. Congratulations to Daniil Dubov. Bye bye.